Hello there, AP Human Geo people. Let's go ahead and do our last video lecture about agricultural stuff. So a whole lot of economic things are coming your way. Ready, set, let's go. So yeah, different ways of extracting resources and farming and all this stuff. Let's do it. Let me click this button here. Oh, well, now we're going out. Now we're going back in. Okay, so here's fancy industrialized farming. And now I'm also going to talk about resource extraction from the world. This isn't exactly farming, but it's definitely, this is the part of Human Geo where I'll discuss about it. And here they are farming, or not farming, I just told myself that. Here they are processing metals and minerals. And here they are just wiping out rainforest. It's pretty rough. Okay, so two kinds of farming is what we'll see through all the world of farming. Intensive land use and extensive land use. And really, I'd like to think about it as intensive or you're hardly ever using the land at all. That's extensive. So an intensive land use, it's sort of like every inch of your farm is just packed with growing food, packed with workers. All the land is used to its maximum degree possible. You'll especially see this in Asia, where land is quite limited. I'll tell you, when I was living in South Korea, I remember looking out the window of a bullet train and just seeing farms as far as my eye could see, and the farms would go all the way up to the mountain, and not an inch of land was wasted. So that is super duper intensive land use, because they're also trying to get as much out of that land as possible. And the alternative, really the opposite of it, is extensive land use, where you are using the land for agricultural purposes, but you're not really focused on every square inch. And that's especially true with like ranching. You just sort of let the cows wander and you don't really care if the cows skip over one patch of grass or the other. So it's kind of low output, low amounts of labor. And that's the real defining ways of how we use our land. Typically in Asia, especially, you'll find a whole lot of intensive land use, and other parts of the world you'll find more extensive land use. But every country also has its own little nuances here and there. All right, moving on. Okay, so this is a concept that I hope I've already hit on a little bit, but I'm hitting on it again. Can all food grow everywhere? The answer is, of course, no. It absolutely cannot. Hopefully I've already talked to you guys about Mediterranean climates and tropical climates. And, well, bananas, I think, are an excellent example. I bring up bananas a lot because they're like my favorite food and they're dying. And could we grow bananas in mainland America? The answer is no. I mean, maybe in some parts of Florida. That would be maybe it. But the problems are bananas need a very specific temperature range, and they need 80% humidity. 80% humidity isn't super common in the United States. They also need special soil types. They need moderate wind conditions. So you can only really grow bananas right around the equator. That's where they're at. So let's check out some banana pictures here. All right. Beautiful, delicious bananas. Please don't all die to a disease. Yeah, here's a lady thinking she could pot a banana plant in her house. Not unless if you have some incredible climate controls would that ever work. And here's different soil types. Those are important. And this is the regions of the world where you can have bananas. So maybe you could have them on the bottom tip of Florida. I should take that back. But the ideal places for bananas are Indonesia, Congo, Colombia, Venezuela, and parts of Brazil. All right, and then all the different soil types. Yep, you always got to consider soil types when you're planting food. Okay, and I think that this chart is really interesting. So I would actually, you don't copy down this entire chart into your notes, but definitely note rice, maize, and shoot, I thought wheat was on here, but I guess it's not. But this is the amount of water required to grow any food. And, well, especially write this down in your notes, kids. Rice needs a ton of water, and also sugarcane needs a ton of water. All those drinks you love to drink, all those sodas, they're using up a lot of the world's water resources to make the sugar for your sodas. And what uses the least amount of water here? Sunflowers don't use that much, and I know they're not on the list, but potatoes, surprisingly enough, don't need very much water at all. I think wheat is maybe middle. Wheat's probably about the same as maize. So, but rice needs 3 times the amount of water as corn or wheat. So that's just showing like, hey, if the world changed its diet from going away from rice and sugar and going into potatoes, we could definitely do a whole lot more to accommodate people and accommodate the environment. So that's the point I really want to make with this chart. All right, can we grow plants on Mars's soil? That's a great question. Have you ever seen the movie The Martian with Matt Damon? He like plants potatoes on Mars. And if any plant could work on Mars, it would be potatoes. They are pretty magical. They could grow in with very little requirements. Oh, here's that table I was talking about. Look, I found it. Okay, so corn, wheat, rice, potatoes, and soybeans. Favorable temperatures. So this is stuff, hopefully you got some of this in your notes already. Rice needs temperatures of 30 to 30 degrees Celsius. Potatoes need 15 to 20 degrees. So potatoes are definitely a crop you can grow in really cold, inaccessible environments. Rice, you got to be a little more hot. Wheat and corn right in the middle. Maximum centigrade. So yeah, this is before the crop starts dying. And you see, you could even grow potatoes in 34 degree temperatures and they're still going to grow fine. They're amazing. And then season days, how long it takes to harvest, they're all pretty similar. Looks like potatoes actually are the slowest crop to grow. And then I think, oh yeah, this minimum temperatures. So, wow, wheat can only grow in 5 degrees. Dang, wheat can be even colder than potatoes. That's surprising. I thought potatoes were always the coldest. All right, moving on. Okay, so yeah, let's just write down a sentence about this. But this is something that I think comes up as a bonus question in one of my Kahoots. The country of Kenya, surprisingly, is this huge flower-producing country. In fact, a lot of people who get roses on Valentine's Day, there's a 25% chance the rose came all the way from Africa. And then Colombia and Israel each have 16% of the market share. So if you just look at Colombia, Israel, and Kenya, that's half of all the roses in the entire world. And the roses are grown in those countries, but if you were going to a European market, they would actually send the roses to the Netherlands. In the Netherlands, they would cut the roses, clean the roses, turn them into bouquets, and then they would spread the bouquets all around the world. So, yeah, that's pretty interesting. You didn't think that there's a global pattern for Valentine's Day, but there certainly is. So that's pretty cool. Didn't know that. All right, so yep, spreading roses around the world. It's kind of cool. International agriculture. Okay, so now this stuff isn't agriculture anymore, but I am talking about human usage of the land and messing with resources. And so let's talk about fracking. Fracking is a special way of getting underground gas and oil resources. And it's just whatever minerals you want to get under the ground. Previously, we thought that you had to drill wells directly down to access any kind of underground gas or oil resources, and it was really complicated. But fracking makes that process way easier. Fracking is where we first drill a pipe down, and then we drill the pipe sideways. And you see that in both these pictures. The pipe can kind of loop around. And this is only something we started doing in the maybe late 90s, early 2000s. But the thing that makes fracking really controversial is fracking also has these like little micro, how could I call them, shakers or little explosions, but they're not designed to hurt anybody, that are designed to kind of break up the rocks and to loosen up more natural gas or more oil or whatever they're trying to pump out of the ground. Yeah, and actually they usually shoot a lot of water down there just to break up parts of the sediment in the rock. And that's the part that gets really complicated. Because, here, I'll zoom in on this for a second, and I'll zoom back to the words. But as they drill down, and as they shoot the pipe full of water to break up and loosen this shale oil and the natural gas, the problem is you've got some families who might live on this land, and they have their own private wells, and they get their water from the aquifer. Normally, the aquifer is protected from oil and natural gas. But as the fracking is shaking things up, some of this oil and natural gas could get into people's drinking water. And that is absolutely happening. And so a lot of people are kind of freaking out about fracking, especially if it's fracking near where people live, because it could really upset their natural environment. So, yeah, this is just the precise definition of fracking there. And fossil fuels, hopefully it's a word you've heard before, but fossil fuels are these high carbon natural resources. I'm talking about coal, petroleum, natural gas, of course, oil. Oil and petroleum are kind of the same thing. And yeah, these are, we burn these fossil fuels. It creates a lot of energy. It powers our machines. It powers our cars. It powers our airplanes. But it creates a lot of pollution. And it is a huge concern in our world today. All right, now let me bounce through these pictures. So these are oil derricks. Here they are just pumping oil out of the ground. You'll see a whole lot of these in Southern California and Texas. But I actually see the most of these in Venezuela and Saudi Arabia. Those are the two big oil producers on our planet. And here's how fracking works. And let me just add this, though. People back in the 1960s did some math, and they said the world was going to run out of oil by the year 2000. But the problem was, people back then assumed technology would never change. And in the intervening years, we've invented fracking, so now we can access all this oil laterally under the ground. And we also developed processes to create oil from shale oil. And maybe I'll get into that on another slide. But shale oil is when oil gets mixed with sand, and people in the past were like, oh, this oil is worthless. There's too much sand in it. But now we've got this whole chemical process where we can filter the sand out of the oil. So we have enough oil to easily last another 100 years and maybe even longer. So the world will not run out of oil anymore. Thomas Malthus, you were wrong. Okay, so fracking right there, there's just some more stuff about it. But yeah, this risks of fracking, it can contaminate the ground well water, and it's really concerning for people who live near these things. And yeah, here's all the oil deposits around the world. You can see Canada's got a bunch, America's got quite a bit. The Saudi Arabian and Venezuela fields are just packed full of oil. China does have some oil, but it's honestly not a lot. And there's quite a bit of oil in certain underwater areas around the world, too. And I'll get into that in the political unit. Wow, Australia has a surprising amount. I didn't know they had that much. But, yeah, like Japan has totally nothing. So Japan's totally screwed when it comes to oil reserves. And then here's just a more defined map of where you'll find oil in the United States. Surprising amount in the Midwest area. So, wow. I didn't really think we used that much of it. But I know right now North Dakota is this big kind of oil rush where people are pumping it out. And that's what coal looks like. And okay, now sectors of the economy. This is undoubtedly the most important slide of this presentation today. Okay, sectors of the economy. There are 4 sectors. Some people even define 5. I disagree with those people. I say there are 4. 4 sectors of the economy. Primary, secondary, tertiary, quaternary. Easy to remember. The primary sector is anything that you get material out of the ground. You're like getting the stuff you need to make other stuff. That is the primary sector. These are the farmers. These are the people who mine oil and iron and ore. And if you're out in nature getting resources, you are a primary sector worker. Okay, and then we get to the secondary sector. The secondary sector, typically I want you to think of factories. These are where people take the materials of the primary sector and they process it into something that can be sold on the market. So that's the secondary sector. And then the tertiary sector. The tertiary sector is where people go to buy things. This is a tertiary sector would be where a customer meets with someone to sell something. Typically, the tertiary sector, you will sell the stuff that the secondary sector produces. But the tertiary sector, you could also just be selling a service. It could just be you show up at the dentist. You're like, hey, dentist, I see you help me with my problem. The dentist fixed your teeth. Boom, that was a tertiary sector encounter because you directly interacted with a dentist. But if that dentist sold you a toothbrush, well, I don't think the dentist personally made that toothbrush. He probably purchased it from a toothbrush factory. So the toothbrush was created in the secondary sector, sent to the dentist. And then what was the toothbrush made out of? It was probably made out of some oil residue. Probably the bristles are made out of plastic. So whoever made the plastic to produce the toothbrush, the plastic creator, they would be primary sector. Okay, and now we get to the quaternary sector. The quaternary sector is probably the smallest of the three sectors, probably the most rare. But a quaternary sector person organizes or creates products. They're sort of like the managers of various businesses. And you can also think about these as people who are kind of in research and development, who are maybe in like high levels banking and accounting. If they're kind of either running the business or doing the research to create new products, they are quaternary. Say I put financial sector in there too. Okay, so usually when we're in a live class, I really deep dive into making sure every kid understands these four sectors because they're going to come up a lot, especially in the next unit. So why don't I just do some more examples where I just describe the various sectors of the economy. A teacher, like myself, I am a tertiary sector worker. I provide a service directly to people, and we interact and we talk. In the event that one day Mr. Brown writes his own history textbook, I guess I would have to contact a book publisher, and the book publisher would have probably a tertiary office. I would meet a published person there, and he'd be like, okay, you want to make this book? Great. I'll, sign some documents, and I'll be like, okay, we'll make the book. The publisher themselves will call up people at a factory and say, okay, people at the factory, we're going to start processing these books off a printing press. And they'll be like, okay, well, before we process the book on the printing press, we need to buy some paper. So they'll call up some people at a paper mill. The people at the paper mill will cut down trees. Doing that is a primary sector work. They'll send those trees to the paper mill. The paper mill will process the trees into paper. That's secondary work. Then they'll process the paper into books. That's also secondary work. But then the people who sell the book to, other high schools or other people, that would be tertiary work. And myself being the book's writer, that itself would probably be considered quaternary, unless if I am like personally at a bookstore and I'm like, hey, people buy my book, then that would be tertiary. So sometimes the sectors of the economy gets a little tricky. And hopefully we'll have time in class where you can bring up various situations, and I'll do my best to describe what sector of the economy you're talking about. Okay, so that's sectors of the economy. Make sure you know this stuff really, really well. It's unlike so many FRQs, it blows my mind. Okay. So secondary activities, manufacturing. So I've described this. It's whenever you think about secondary sector, it's just factories, building stuff. And what does this say? I'm just going to skip this slide. I don't think it says useful anymore. Okay, name that sector of the economy. So, Walgreens. This is tertiary. People go there to purchase stuff. They are the service part of the economy. A movie theater. This is tertiary. When people go into the movie theater, buy a ticket, watch the movie, tertiary. But if I showed you instead pictures of people filming a movie, you could actually consider that secondary because they're kind of producing the movie to be sold at a movie theater or a DVD house or something. All right, this is a factory. This is easy secondary identification. This is pumping oil out of the ground. This is primary. This is you're getting stuff out of the ground, getting resources. Going to a gas station, this would be tertiary. People buy the gas directly there. The Bank of America. Okay, and this one gets a little tricky. If you go into the Bank of America and you talk with a teller and you're opening an account and depositing money, that part of it is tertiary. But there's plenty of people in every bank who never really interact with customers. They just kind of manage the various accounting and manage the various assets. They're kind of like in the back rooms. And those people, the people that never interact with customers, they'd be considered quadrinary because they're kind of doing stuff behind the scenes. All right, this is a factory for, I think, cookies or muffins, so this would definitely be secondary. These people are mining stuff out of the ground. That'd be primary. This guy's farming wheat. That would be primary as well. Robots building stuff for us. That's secondary for sure. This person looks like they're doing some kind of research and development. Maybe they're designing new seeds for Monsanto. So they would definitely be considered quadrinary. And, okay, so now let's talk about commodity chains. So you got to understand that in the world of agriculture, there's this whole integration between knowing what the customer wants, knowing what to grow, getting it to market, and they really do their best to coordinate this whole line of how food gets to people's, well, grocery stores and ultimately to their houses. I was really scared when the pandemic started in 2020 that the commodity chain would fail, that because the world went into lockdown, various parts of this very complicated food delivery service would fail. And I know that there have been some foods that are a little more difficult to come by. I know like flour for baking is like supposedly non-existent during this whole pandemic. But for the most part, really, we never went hungry in this country. We never ran out of food, which is pretty amazing. So good job, commodity chain. Okay, and then what do we got here? This is just some charts showing income, obesity. Oh, this is more than 1 mile from a grocery store, and diabetes. So let's see. Where are most households more than 1 mile away from the grocery store? It looks like the Dene Reservation in Arizona. Looks like the Lakota Sioux reservations. Those are far away from grocery stores. Parts of Kentucky. And then car-free households more than a mile from the grocery store. Kind of the same things we're seeing there. But then where is the most obesity and the most diabetes in the United States? It looks like the Deep South. And once again, the Deep South. Those southern states. So much obesity and diabetes. Oh my goodness. Okay. Agriculture quizzes. I'll make sure to do this with the class. And then, bonus round. Okay, well, I'll just do that with the class later. All right, so now let's talk about, I think, just 2 more concepts and I'm all done. So urban farming. They talked about this in the America Revealed video, but urban farming is a new concept. I think it's pretty cool, where people are saying, hey, there's not a lot of fresh food available in urban environments, so let's make farms in urban environments. And so it's just, usually this is associated with organic and kind of like an individual. This isn't really a mass-produced sort of thing, but it's people that are taking the initiative to try to create gardens for their communities in urban areas. And yeah, I think that's pretty cool. So let's check out some of these pictures of urban gardens. So here's, yeah, they're turning in some old parts of downtowns into gardens and community vegetable growing places. So super duper cool. Definitely keeps things healthy. Yeah, they're growing them on the rooftop here. That's pretty wild. I think this is Hong Kong. There they are, growing more stuff, bringing food to market, and pretty great. Las Vegas Farmers Market. Hey, it's a thing. Okay. And now community-supported agriculture definitely goes along with urban gardening, but it's something that you're going to see more and more. It's the subscription-based service where people pay a monthly fee or a weekly fee, and a local farmer just delivers a random box of fruits and vegetables to your door. So yeah, it's definitely a great way to help organic farmers make money. Rich city people, they generally want fresh food, and this is going to be a more and more common thing in the future, I think. So CSA, Community Supported Agriculture. There you go. If you live in New York City, I know like 4 people in New York City who have a service like this. They're like, ooh, I got a squash today. I'm like, I don't know. I kind of prefer to pick my fruits and vegetables. So, okay, so $25 a week to get fruits and vegetables delivered to your door. Community Supported Agriculture, farmer shows up, and here they are giving you free food. Well, it's not free. But, all right, that's it for me. Peace out.